there you are. I've been expecting you because I know what you're here for. On Sunday, Chuck Todd will attempt to break down just what happened on Election Day and where do we go from here on Meet the Press. Thinking of leaving the country? Well, Secretary of State John Kerry is visiting New Zealand to discuss bilateral and global issues. Just a few days ago, Kerry became the most senior U.S. official to ever visit Antarctica. On Monday, they're back. That's right, the hardest working group in the United States, Congress, returns from the Veterans Day recess. President Obama heads overseas to begin one of his last trips. He'll visit Germany and Greece to discuss economic and migration issues, as well as the conflicts in Ukraine and Syria and a campaign against the Islamic State. And over in England, Bonnie Prince Charles celebrates his 67th birthday. Happy birthday, Chuck! On Tuesday, Secretary of State John Kerry's overseas peregrinations continue. He'll be in the United Arab Emirates, and then he heads to Morocco. And People magazine's Sexiest Man Alive is announced. I think my chances are pretty good this year. On Thursday, President Obama's overseas trip continues as he heads to Germany for meetings with President Angela Merkel. And for you presidential history buffs, Marilyn Monroe's famous Happy Birthday, Mr. President dress goes on sale in Los Angeles. On Friday, and they're leaving town. That's right, after 4 days of breaking a sweat on the job, Congress is taking a break for the Thanksgiving recess. Must be nice. And now, before I go, it's time for a special announcement. When this goofy little experiment in online journalism began almost 8 years ago, I never expected it to last this long. And now it seems somehow fitting that as America begins to turn a new page, so should I. Also, the folks at NBC Digital say they don't have room for this anymore. Ha! This mansion ain't cheap. So this, folks, is the last ever week ahead. Gather the children for some family-friendly viewing. Now here to join me in saying so long is my old co-host and current political guru at NPR, Domenico Montanaro. Yo, D!
What's happening, Andy?
Man, hey, break down the election. Just what happened?
Well, so many things happened. Obviously, the polls got it all wrong.
Right.
There were at least a margin of them that just didn't see what was going to happen. I had been saying before the election that Hillary Clinton had something of a blue wall. There were about 18 states that added up to 242 electoral votes,
right,
that each went in the last 6 elections for Democrats. Right. If that wall held, then Hillary Clinton would have been president. If all the Democratic voters who Barack Obama had turned out, that wall probably would have held. She had major problems and difficulties in the upper Midwest, right, the industrial North. It's a path I called the trade winds, where Donald Trump's message of anti-trade populism that he sort of threw on Republicans' head, really seemed to appeal to a lot of blue-collar white voters who apparently did vote for Barack Obama, decided not to this time, and gave Trump 1-point margins in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Hillary Clinton wins all 3. She's president. She didn't, and she never made the sale to those voters. It's really interesting that she, in 2000 when she campaigned for the Senate seat in New York, the first thing she did was go to upstate New York, and a lot of people thought, gee, that seems strange.
And she didn't even go to Wisconsin.
No, she didn't go to Wisconsin. Their campaign thought that she had it in the bag. They outperformed, actually, in urban and suburban areas, but got blown out in rural areas where white working-class voters turned out, not in bigger numbers, but in wider margins than in past elections.
How about the great punditocracy? How did they get it started? I've long been a critic of the echo chamber of the Washington punditocracy.
The Acela corridor.
Yes, exactly.
I do think it's a lesson in the fact that all of us need to make sure we talk in caveats. And I think it's a real lesson in polling. I've been saying for a long time that polling is not meant to be this precise. When you see people start talking about, oh, she's up 1, or he's down 4, or he's up 3, or why did it change 1 or 2 points? That's not what polling is intended to do. Polling is never meant to have been predictive. It's supposed to be something that tells you where the country stands. And for a long time, it sort of was like that, but they missed something this time, big time. Or as Trump would say, big league, not big Lee. There's a G there.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
Anyway. So they missed it. They missed those blue-collar white voters in the upper Midwest and then the Clinton campaign took them for granted.
Now, what about the role of the third party? I mean, you know me about third parties. They always show up every 4 years. It's like the Browns expecting to go to the Super Bowl, even though they're going to be 0-16. So, hey, we're here, folks. We want to play. So, what about the role of Gary Johnson and Jill Stein?
I think there was a crucial role. I mean, Gary Johnson won a little more than 4 million votes this time. He won a little over 1 million votes in 2012. Democrats were off by about, I should say that votes will continue to be counted. So Hillary Clinton's margin and numbers will continue to go up, as will Donald Trump's. But, not enough to be to the levels where Barack Obama was. She's off by about 5 million votes from Obama's vote total in 2012. When you look at how many more votes were cast for Gary Johnson and Jill Stein as compared to 4 years ago, clearly she was not able to fire up millennials and young voters in a way that she would have needed to. You look at a place like Arizona, where a whole lot of young voters wound up going to Gary Johnson, and Clinton only lost by about 4 points in Arizona. I think you're seeing like a fundamental realignment and shift in the country. I mean, Texas, for example, Latinos certainly came out to vote. Texas was within 10 points for the first time in 20 years.
Now, was Hillary just the wrong candidate?
She had flaws. She clearly had, had flaws.
Would Joe Biden have done better?
I think there's probably going to be a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking, or Wednesday morning. There already is. You could argue it because he certainly had a laser focus on those white working class voters. Would he have had similar problems in turning out the Obama coalition? Would he have been? He absolutely would have been, caricatured and made to look like somebody who's a loose cannon. And,
yeah, but that's what Trump was, and he rode that.
The only thing I would just say is that, because the number one question I keep getting is Bernie Sanders clearly would have done better. There was no evidence that he could fire up black voters.
Right.
It's very, and he wasn't really vetted, right? I mean,
right.
I think that it's very difficult to say what would have definitely happened depending on the candidate, but there's no question Democrats have a bench problem now. They have a coalition problem. They're going to need to fire up voters who aren't that enthusiastic about this kind of half-loaf conventional mentality that the party has.
Well, there you have it, folks. Domenico Montanaro, welcome back.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay, everybody, thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. And I guess you're going to have to get your news someplace else.
NPR.
Oh, Drew, come here. Drew, come on over here. I want to introduce everybody to the guy behind the camera who, over the years, has played my butler. And, Drew Fredrickson, everybody. So
Cheers,
long.
guys.
Now we can have this gin.
This up, yeah.